So thanks everyone for coming. We really appreciate it. My name is Mortimer Chatterjee. I'm one half of Chatterjee and Lal. And today I'm here as one half of CNL Design, which is an entity we started last year to look at historical and contemporary design practices with special reference to South Asia. We've now been having exhibitions here at 47A for the last year and a half or so. The majority of the exhibitions we've mounted have been historical in nature, looking in particular at the post-independence period. We're also very interested in local design histories, so we've mounted exhibitions which have looked specifically at the area, the geographical area we're in today, which is Girgaon, the old part of Bombay. But this exhibition is different for us. It's a pivot towards contemporary design practices, and we are thrilled to be showing the work of Immaterial Studio, who Dara and I have been following for a number of years now. I think the first time we came across the work was a piece which is here somewhere, maybe down there, the spaces, which actually took India by storm, I would say, in 2016-17. And everyone was saying, you know, who is this? Who's the brains behind this amazing piece of design? And we were then lucky enough to meet Nitin Barchha, who's sitting next to me, a couple of years later. And we have been thinking through, talking about his practice over the last couple of years, and were very excited when we knew the gallery was starting to invite him to exhibit at 47A. And this exhibition functions as somewhat of a retrospective, but also signposting his present and future concerns within the realm of product design. Yeah. I think I've spoken enough now as way of introduction. You're going to put off your telephone ringer thing. So what we're hoping today to really do is just to dig into Nitin's practice. He is, of course, a practicing architect, and that has great relevance to his work as a designer as well. So the way I asked him to present his own history is both as an architect and as a designer. And so really, before any of that, Nitin, I want you to maybe take us back to your formative experiences, to do really thinking about your relationship with architecture, not even when you're studying architecture, but when you're a child, when you're growing up. Where did you grow up? What were your experiences growing up and your relationship to architecture, and perhaps then how those influences have influenced your subsequent practice?
Okay. So, I'll just quickly talk about the initial experiences, and I'll call them experiences because I remember them only in bits and pieces. But fortunately, those are the most interesting bits and pieces which have really finally culminated or they got me where I am today. So I am from Rajasthan. I've been brought up in Bombay all the while, but there was always this vacation thing, you know, where we would spend two and a half months going back to our native place, and those were the only like holidays in those days, you know. And how much I've enjoyed being there is just, I still miss that time, but I don't think that time will come, because one has to be as free willing as a child to really enjoy that time in that manner. So one very good thing that I really feel my parents did was they never bought me toys, and that allowed me to explore everything apart from toys, and that also somehow that also helped me be very curious about how materials work and about right then. So like as kids during vacations, I'd just create like this entire like a plaza of portals. We just put two stones in the ground and put a horizontal piece of slate over it, and then we just create like multiple portals of different scales across. And now when I look at it in hindsight, I feel like, oh, that was the root. That's how it all started. The whole idea of wanting to build something. It was never about building out of waste or building out of whatever, but it was always just about building out of whatever was available. There was this one time when I was very curious about how the roots look, roots of plants. So I built like this little house, say just about 8 or 10 inches tall, and put soil over the roof of the house and planted seeds on that, and started watering the ground. And like you could see an entire mesh of roots trying to come down, reach out for water. And these are the things that we did as kids. And so that's one. This is one incident which Maud is particularly very interested in, which I'll narrate. Is that this is my Nani's house in the village, and as kids, so those were the days when the windows in that house did not have like a sill. Like in Bombay, you have houses which have at minimum 3 feet sill level, right? So in that house, the windows were right till the floor, and irrespective of where they are, like windows which are to the outside were right till the floor. So as a kid, I actually crawled out of one of the windows and reached a sloping roof. And that's when Anaji realized it. So he offered me sweets and chocolate and all of those things, saying that, hey, come and see, look at this. And I'm living today, so which means I did fall for it and came inside. But these are the memories which really, and what I remember about that house no more. And what I remember about that house is the architecture of it. And that's not because that memory was not built in the time when I was studying architecture. That memory was built way before. So these are the things which really built up to my interest in, I've always noticed this detail of how I still remember that house had a very difficult staircase, which was like 1 foot by 1 foot. So the riser and the tread were both 1 foot. And I had to really wait at every step to climb up. And so, but the whole idea that I did notice them, now in hindsight seems to help in connecting the dots and trying to see what really happens. But which you'll also see in my,
and I think we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Certainly the idea of memory, which clearly plays such an important part in the practice.
Yes.
Nitin, I want to now take you forward to your decision to study architecture, which was in the late 90s.
97.
And you studied at a school in Bombay, which is called the Rachna Sansad Academy. And so just take us through some of those early projects, and perhaps I'd like you to talk to some of the influences, those early influences you had, and maybe any mentors at that point in time.
So, during architectural education, I would like to talk about this one particular individual. His name was Khalil Sheikh. And today I don't even know where he is, what he does and all those things, unfortunately. But he was like such an influence on what I did, or how I shaped myself, or how the architectural practice shaped. Because he allowed me, or he would ignore, like when you join architecture, you want so much of validation every time, you possibly want the professor to look at everything that you're doing every hour. And he would just ignore and move on. And I think that had like a huge impact on because that also, like he would just while passing, like once in a week maybe, he would just say, "Acha hai, aur karo. Acha hai, aur karo." That was his accent. He had like very flat tongue kind of an accent. But that's what he'd say. And that constantly pushed me to keep on doing. So this is one of the basic design models which I made, where you can very clearly see how you can possibly see the connection between what you see now and that.
Undoubtedly.
So it's a very strong connection where he would say, keep doing, keep going, don't stop. So today when we, like people from my studio will also vouch for this, is that like we do things so many times, like there's always a redo, like this piece here, we'll talk about it again, but must have been done like 50 times. So that's how, but that really comes from there, where, so I believe that, if you're not very talented, or if you think that you're not very talented, then it's a great idea to just repeat and keep doing it. You will reach there. So that
Fake it till you make it.
yeah.
Yeah. What medium is this? This is this maquette is.
So
This model
this is
is-
basic design model.
Yeah.
And it was like again, you'll see a lot of these, some of the spaces like the staircase and all. Like the staircase that you see here. So these are all coming out from that house that I'm talking about
In Rajasthan.
in Rajasthan. So how the connection is, but again, you see it only in hindsight. You can never see it while you're doing it. You don't see the influence. Now that you see it, you realize that, oh, that's the connection. No, this is paper. It's file card. Yeah. So then this is another one where again you'll see like these different kinds of staircases all over the place. The entire project is it's filled with staircases. So the whole project was like that. Today, now that we are very practical humans, we want spaces which are flat and single span. But this is the time when we were impractical. And I prefer that to this though,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So you graduate in around 99?
22.
2002.
Yeah, 2002, sorry, yeah.
And you then, how long is it before you begin your own architectural practice?
So I worked at a few studios for about 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And I started in 2006.
Okay. Okay. And that's the studio is called.
So initially it used to be called the White Room Studio.
Right.
And then we changed the name and it's Material Immaterial Studio because that's where products took lead. But we did run an architectural studio for some time.
Yeah.
I still do some bit of architecture, but that's different.
Should I move on to the next slide?
Yes, please. So this is my first architectural project. And again, you'll see the whole idea of equal steps, the impractical part of it. They 1:1. So they're like 10 inches by 10 inches. They're difficult, but they're not difficult on a shorter span. So if you have to climb just like about 7 or 8 steps, it's fine. But the whole love for, so I'm trying to just draw this connection between how this love for staircases and for the whole idea of shadows and the entire idea of transition is always been there.
Yeah. Should I move on?
This is in Kandivali. It's a house. It was done in 2007.
So now we're going to move on to something completely different.
Something completely different. So while I was practicing architecture, in fact, from my third year architecture, is when I was highly influenced by this architect called Nari Gandhi. And
why don't you tell us a little bit about Nari Gandhi? He's one of those names that you hear in Bombay so often.
Yeah.
But one doesn't actually get to see the results of his practice.
Yes. So because I think most of his practice was for private residences and private spaces, which is why one doesn't see a lot of it.
And this is in the 1970s?
1972 is when he came back to Bombay. And from there till 95.
Right. He passed away in
95, yeah. So he practiced for, 92. Huh? Yeah. Oh,
We'll,
wonderful. Yeah.
we can
Yeah,
talk about that
we'll
later.
talk about that. Yeah, I'm in love with all of his work, and that's when, though we were through architectural education, we were always introduced to the Baroque style of architecture and all those things. But I think Nari Gandhi had this very Indianized the entire form of fluid architecture, I would say, organic forms and all those things, and which had a great influence on my mind since then. But one is always looking for an opportunity to do this while holding on to the love for shadows, like, or light, like one wants to call it. And that's when we had this opportunity to do a house for somebody, like a very young couple.
And where is this?
This is in Bandra.
Right.
It's an apartment that we did in. This was done in 2000, around 12. This was done in 2012.
And you're responsible for the furniture that we see?
Yeah, all of it. So if you look at this sofa, it's floating. So the whole idea. So one wants to always see how this and the floor is like how the space and the independent furniture and how the shadow really shows the existence of the real furniture. So that's where one really wants to work in that space where it's like illusion. And so I've always fallen in love with this whole idea of how illusion and reality can be connected and how one does that. So I've tried to do that in this house, and I still follow this kind of style of architecture because I like the idea of fluid forms, how the inside and outside, how the roof and the walls connect, and they just connect seamlessly.
Yeah.
Like the space is like one single envelope, and not three different things together.
Should I move?
So yeah. And this is where we connected, like literally connected the inside and outside. So there's a house that we did. It's a farmhouse where
In
you
Maharashtra.
in Maharashtra, yeah. And you have like, so if you see that staircase there, just look at how the shadows play in curved spaces and all of those things, So again, that's really, really interesting to me. How everything. So when there's a roof, how the roof stops, like just does not go beyond a certain point. So allowing enough light and enough shadow at the same time. So yeah.
So this is 2016.
This is 2016.
And you would say by this stage?
Yes, by this time we had also come upon this thing about how architecture is for an end user, and how products could give us that freedom where it was not built with an end user in mind, and what that freedom can do. So we started exploring those aspects of my practice. Sorry? This? Yes, of course. Yeah.
Haven't we seen this advertised on?
Yeah. Have you guys seen this?
On Airbnb.
Yes. It's a very, very common house.
It's become a very famous house in. One can rent.
They've started giving it out on rent.
It's actually is it on Airbnb on Saffron Stays.
It's on Saffron Stays.
Yeah.
They started giving it out in just about a year and a half ago, and it is not vacant even in summers. So that's a rare thing, if you have something.
There's air conditioning in here. Air conditioning?
There is, but the temperature difference is quite nice.
Yeah.
From the outside to the inside, there's almost like 12 degrees of temperature difference, which makes it very comfortable.
Yeah.
So this is where we started exploring the realm of products, where we could do the impossible, because so when you do architecture, it has to be practical. There has to be a practical aspect to it. Though a lot of what you saw may look like impractical, but it is all very practical, very usable. So which is why, or maybe I would say that I wanted it to be more impractical. Let's put it that way. Which is when we started exploring products. So this is the first series of products that we worked on, where you can see the influence from the organic architecture coming into this, the whole idea of how Nari would do the inbuilt lights and all of those things in the houses that he did. So that comes back. So we had also done a study on mosses and lichens to understand the forms of how they function, or the entire, like this lamp is inspired from the spores of mosses. Yeah.
The spores of moss.
Yes, moss spores, when they open up, they look like that. But one has to really go close to see how an opened up moss spore, but that's what it looks like. And yeah, so this kind of work that we were doing went to LDF in
What's LDF?
London Design Festival in 2018. But that was it. Beyond which, because that is also the time. Like I have always been in this whole exploratory mode. So this is when we were also working with concrete and exploring how concrete works, and the older connection with the staircase was something which was just going on in my head. And I did. Also, this was the time when a lot of my friends were starting studios, starting their own studios, building homes for themselves. And so when you go to meet somebody, or when somebody invites you, you have to get them a gift, right? And I didn't know a place where I could go to buy a gift that could show, because you don't give a gift which represents the person who's taking it, but it represents the person who's giving it. And I could not find anything which one could see and say, hey, this has come from Nitin, you know. And I was like, no, this can't last, this can't go on forever, you know. So let me do something. Which is when we designed this set. And this was actually only designed so that we could gift it to friends. That's it. It was never ever supposed to be a product that we would sell. And then I had a friend over who pushed me to sell it. He's like, more people need to have it. It's not just your friends, but other people also should have it. And he literally put it this way. And I was like, oh, is it really that good? He's like, yeah, it's amazing, you should. I said, okay, you get the first gift and let me just try and figure things around it. But here you can see like all my experiences of spaces, of the entire light and shadow and all of those things playing full blast here. Like we had, we designed these elevations, and like I said, we just redid it multiple times till we reached this. So this, so between when I started working on this till when we came out of the first set, it was already LDF. So that took 2 years.
London Design Fair.
Yeah. So
this was also in the London Design Fair?
No. So this came out after that show.
Right.
Yeah. And
so this was essentially the beginning then of
Material, the way we see it today.
Yeah. So now playing with scale.
Then I said, oh, this is great. But then
that's what represented you as the cause.
So when somebody sees it, it's like I have like every space that is there in spaces is represented by a space that I have experienced before. And it's all there. Like each of these, like a series of windows, the long windows, the windows at a lower level, everything is part of what. Yes.
So now, thinking about scale.
Yeah. So then it was like, I said, okay, now we have this whole play of light and shadow, and how do we get it to a scale where it can be enjoyed by everybody or carried around, and which is when we designed this whole set of 9 little concrete pieces. And I wanted to keep them as minimal as possible, but at the same time they had to be architectural. They did have to have steps. I mean, they couldn't have been any other way by then. And that's how we came up with this 9 sets of cufflinks. And then we, of course, did more jewelry. We did like Chimera, which is a series of pendants and stuff like that.
And how long did it take before really the company started getting traction in the broader design world?
This was something I was really surprised by, is that there's this one website where we, like a third-party website, where we started selling the spaces, and they were very clear that, oh, you need to just be very patient. It'll at least be like 6 months before you are able to attract enough people to buy your stuff. And I said, fine. Means I didn't want to sell it any which way, so I did not have anything to lose. So I said, that's okay. And I had the first person who buying my stuff in less than a week's time. These guys were also very amazed at, oh, and so that also gave me a lot of confidence that though I never thought about who is going to buy, but then that gave me confidence that, okay, there are people as crazy as I am, and it's great to have this community of people, and always. So we have like these long. I still have like these long conversations with people in different parts of the world where we talk about architecture and family and whatnot, and they get on a video call showing me that how their space or where they live is very similar to one of the Spaces pieces, and it's crazy. So that craze has been going on, and I enjoy it a lot. So yeah.
So because there is clearly a universality to the
how
aesthetic
these,
references that you're using, and one often uses this idea of the brutalist architecture that seems to run through the gamut of your practice. Is it fair to say that you have intentionally used that aesthetic language in order to create something that can be global and universally responded to, or is that just
it just happened by chance?
It just happened by chance.
Yes. So in fact, the word brutalism I was aware of, but if my work can be called brutalist was something that I got aware of just about 2 years ago. And before that, I was like, okay, that's architectural and it's concrete, so that's it. There's nothing, like, I could not put that word to it. Yeah, so about 2 years ago, we started accepting that it's brutalist work. Okay. So it's just terminology. Yeah. And that's when, suppose that so the whole idea of light and shadow architecture is being there through my practice. And
this is the piece which we have with us
right here. Yeah. And I wanted to integrate play, because as kids we have had this like when I don't know how, like, again, my kids do go on play dates and stuff, but when we went on play dates, this is what we did. Okay, so we would have foot rulers and erasers and sharpeners and some like steel balls that we collected from some junk shop or something, and we'd just lay out this entire track on a table or on the floor and run a ball through all of that, and do that all afternoon for like hours together. We just make different tracks, make the ball jump, and do all of that. So when Mrs. Modi was asking me that how did you conceive, or how did you think of something like that, it was already thought of long ago. It's just that I could never connect. So when I started thinking about how I can do that again, is when all those ideas came back. It's like, oh, we can do this, we can do that. That's how this. In fact, somebody wrote a long email to me, must be like 300 words, okay, where he wrote the entire journey of this ball in this product, okay, like how it makes a sound when it drops into that hole, how it makes a sound when it twirls around in the circular space, and then how it goes, sways up and down, finds a hole, rotates in a clockwise and then an anti-clockwise. So all of that was so that's heartwarming.
And I'd encourage anyone who's not had a go after, please
Yeah,
just
please feel free
please
to, yeah.
take a round on the
Yeah.
on the gunboard.
So yeah, and
Do you want to speak more to?
yeah. So then again, like this whole idea of so there's this, I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie that I was watching where there's this guy who's running across like an arcade, and I was like, wow, means what an experience. You have this extremely tall arcade which is like possibly 10 times your size, and then the entire frame had captured that, which I loved. And that's what this is, like tall arcade and the ball running across. So it is almost like humans running in spaces.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, so there's multiple influences and multiple, but then again the primary thing here is architecture, shadows, and now play.
And now play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is again architecture and shadows. While it was shadows, why not introduce light into it? And so we introduced light, and we're calling it Bazaar. This product is called Bazaar because the influence is from a bazaar in Old Delhi, where it's these very much like our bazaar gate in Bombay, and all of those where you see buildings jutting out as they keep going up. So that's what you'll see in this, that you have buildings jutting out as you keep going up, and then you'll have reverse staircases, the underside of staircases, balconies. So when you look up, it's almost like another world inside.
Yeah.
And that was a fascinating idea. And I was like, that's how this should be. It can't be another way.
Yeah.
So that's what got Bazaar. Also, if you see the outside of this piece, it has like this entire fortress kind of a thing. So it was like, it's like the piece says that I'm holding a lot of experiences within me, and it's like a stronghold. So you need to actually look inside to experience it, or need to get closer to experience it, kind of. Yeah.
And I think that these sorts of takeaways from the pieces in terms of reflecting on the psychological, the idea of memories, is something that you allow for and you encourage, right? In
For
the
people,
in
yes.
the readings of the works. It
Yes.
seems that that's
Yes.
integral to,
Yes.
which is for us so exciting, because in a sense it takes the work into that kind of liminal space between the design object and then the art object.
Yes.
And I think for us that becomes
Yeah.
very exciting.
So, also, just one thing, because now that we are at it, is that you've always had, so whenever you go to places, okay, where where you display your work, everybody always writes, please do not touch, do not touch, do not touch. And when I first showed my work, the tag was please touch, because means what will you do with a pristine object? Like, unless, so to me it is more valuable for to have people come, touch, experience, and talk about it, because why not? As in, what will I do with a piece which is like perfectly covered in a glass case and kept somewhere? It just has no value, because it has come out of memories and it needs to build memories. So then we had like people who were extremely crazy. Like, I think this lady was crazier than I am. So
So what are we looking at here?
So that's a dining table base, by the way. It's like an 8-seater dining table, and so when she called me first,
This
I was
is
like,
in Bombay.
This is in Bombay. It's in Worli. So when I was called first to do this, I was like, "Are you sure you want to make a dining table out of concrete?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm very sure. You just do it your way. That's it. Nothing else is important." And I was like, "Okay." So we did this, and again the whole, like, also what I really loved about this space is that So in fact, I was called there because this particular window that you see here had different time. So the light in this space
Yeah, it's
was
beautiful.
was changing constantly. So through the day, so the shadows would change, and which is why she remembered me, and she's like, "Hey, Nitin, you have to do this for me." And I was like, "Oh, that's the largest piece that I would have done till now." Like, okay, no worries, I'm willing to wait. So she waited for like what 5 months for us to come up with this piece, and this is what it is. It adores her house. It's been 3 years now, and yeah, she's enjoying it. I have like, in fact, the other day there was somebody at the gallery who's seen this, and she was telling me that, is that you who's done it? I'm like, yes, the message is passed. Everybody, if you can just connect back, then I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a glass top. Yeah.
yeah. And so now this really becomes, we're really now in the realm leading up to what we see in the gallery
Yeah.
today for this exhibition.
So this is so whenever like this comes from this theory. If you try to remember any of your dreams or any of what you remember as a child or as experiences, the space experiences have always been partial. You'd never remember the entire room or the entire space. You'll only remember an arcade, a set of windows, a wall, or at the most, if you have very strong memory, you'd possibly remember an L. That's it. So we we created some generic spaces which are usually part of people's memories. And we created this set called Replay. This has influences drawn from that thought, one. Two, from the basic design model that you saw, because that's how the whole project was. And from my own childhood memories and stories that we heard from people. So when you hear stories, they do describe, everybody describes a space, right? Even when you read fiction, everybody just tries to describe a space. And their descriptions are always just a part. And that's what this was supposed to be. It was supposed to be like a group of memories which you put together to create your own story. And so that was, and we call it replay because it has already happened and now you're replaying it. So that's why the name replay, where the name replay comes about.
Yeah.
And so replay is now like on steroids, I would say, just for the lack of words. And
On steroids, he's saying. What you see outside is a
yeah, so
reflection.
that's recast. So it's called recast because it's memory which is already cast in your head once, and we recast it in concrete. And
So
the
these
idea
are the
is
pieces here, right?
yeah,
Nitin?
these are the
individual.
2 pieces that you see here. There are about 66 pieces which come together. And again, the idea is the same, is that whenever you remember a space or your memories are usually just elemental. You only remember parts of spaces. Like I always, so if you remember a particular temple or a house or a building or a street, you'd only remember a certain aspect of it. Like when you come into Khodachiwadi, if you remember the street, you'll only remember the rough floor that's there. And that's about it. So your memory is always elemental.
Yeah.
And that's the element that we try to get into recast, which we can see here.
And now paired with Recast is this fabulous series, which is the kind of crescendo, as it were, of the exhibition here. So these are the Sanctum pieces.
Yeah.
And maybe, do you want to take us through physically, or you're happy?
So we can go through. What do you think?
What would everyone like? We could actually ask Nitin maybe to move us. We could go through the exhibition at this point and maybe see the objects.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, would that be fun to do? So Nitin, why don't, instead of talking here, why don't we actually now go into the main space?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay.
Can you ask him? Can you just ask him? Can he move with the microphone?
बाहर catch करेगा. Okay, so Sanctum is like what we are presenting here is what has come together over last 5 years, where we've so originally we were trying to study, or we were studying different forms of architecture that exist. History has been of great influence to me, and so while we were trying to study historical buildings and forms of architecture, you always do that when you travel and stuff like that. So when once the childhood vacations ended, we started traveling, and that's when you started seeing the rest of the country or rest of the world. And I noticed that stepwells was one typology of architecture which did three things for me. Okay, is that one is that my entire love for shadows and light was extremely evident in that, because the name itself, step well, it has steps in it, and the play of shadows is evident, including the arcades and the textures of the wall and everything. So that is one. Second is it was the most unique form of architecture. You don't see stepwells anywhere else in the world. So there was two. And third was like like the entire experience of a stepwell, like how it just takes you to another world. Like every time you are within a stepwell or near a stepwell, you are in another world. It's nothing, you just get disconnected from the rest of the world. So these are some of the things which just worked for me. Like the whole play of light and shadows was something that I wanted. So that's how we selected stepwells. We visited about 30 of them, and I shortlisted 9 out of the 30, which we visited, measured, drew, converted into 3D models, and are presenting it here. It is for people to enjoy the shadows. There are also little stories with each of them. Like one of the stepwells, which is called Panna Minaka Kund, which is inside, was named after, so there was a war between the Rajputs and the Meenas. Meenas were ruling Amer then, and so the Rajputs won. Okay, and after winning, they built this stepwell and named it after Panna Meena, who was the fiercest warrior among the losing clan. So, I mean, that's so fascinating. Also, like, of course, the architecture of the piece is fascinating, but each of them has this little story which is extremely fascinating. So that's what we really put together, like these little stories. Also, if you see this Muskina Bavi, this well here, is like, it's extremely modernist. They're just like these bands of, like, if you want to call brutalist, this is brutalist architecture of the old time. It was built during the Chalukyan era. And it's very minimal, simply because of the material that they use. They use granite, so they couldn't carve into it, which is why there are these bands that you see, and you see like lines running across the well. And then there are these little decorative temples which are built there. The way the temple is organized on a side of the well, and a bridge that you cross over water to go to the temple. So these are things which just were extremely fascinating. So each of them had something very fascinating about it. Like Hale Kalyani is a well which was brought here from. So when the Vijayanagar Empire attacked another state or whatever, they won it over, liked the stepwell, and brought it back home as a trophy. To Hampi, yeah. And it was put back piece by piece in this place, and that's so fascinating. Yeah, like people did so much. Like there's so much. Also, like there's so much that people did around stepwells, but it has not been spoken about much. So which is also something that I propose to expose or explore, or hope people will explore more of them.
Could you talk a little bit to the process, Nitin, of
Yeah.
how you actually make, I mean, other designers are always amazed by the detailing you're able to get in concrete.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So we again like about, we'll just talk about any of the stepwells as a process. Is that first we visually survey, then once we liked it, we measured on the entire thing, converted into 3D, which is then converted into a 3D print, and then made into a mold and cast. And the entire idea of how, like, though I have no shame in saying that that this is one of the 5 pieces that we cast. Okay, so other 4 just don't work, or they don't seem as good, or means good enough to be shown to people. So which get discarded, and there's just one of the 5 that comes out. Also, so whenever we've done these, some of the wells that you see are cut in section. So there's a stage when you know that there is an experience which cannot be had in the actual well. So might as well bring that out, and which is why you just cut it and see the entire play of shadows that could have been if the sun could have reached there. So this is again like, this is fiction, if you really want to call it that way. But it's fiction which is playing on a real ground, because all this is measured on and correct to scale. So yeah. So
And the other fiction, I guess, which gives way to a broader reality is the fact that you have extracted most of the embellishments from the stepwells themselves, in the sense that most of these would have extraordinary carvings of deities.
Yes. The temples, yes. The temples.
And we don't see any of that here. So
Ha.
can you talk to us about why that is?
So because again, like I think the idea was to show the architecture of it, and I also feel that there is this dearth of. So when we talk of conservation, everybody wants to conserve a decoration or a series of decoration. Even when you see people talking about conservation guidelines and all that, it's always about decoration. It's never about a space. So I wanted people to be able to experience space, and it has to be done without the distraction of a decoration. So that's why we tried to remove as much decoration as we thought would not affect the sanctity of the space. And so you do see some of it in the Rani Ki Vav.
Would you like to show us?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
The bench is usable, by the way.
It is naturally not decorated. So that's minimal, that's modest.
Please don't talk about stepwells to everyone. They'll get ruined.
And everyone, please feel free to ask Nitin questions as and when. Just take the microphone from me whenever you have a question.
Yes, please. Yeah. So this is Rani Ki Vav, where we have tried to keep some of the decorations intact. Where we have kept like the frames of decoration and all those, though we have not shown the carvings that are there. This is very, very intricately carved as a stepwell. And everybody who goes to Rani Ki Vav does not go to see the composition of staircases that people have really put together, and somebody really had the time and the intent to compose a certain kind of staircases together. Like, there were these, so they had like a 5-step staircase and a 2-step staircase and a and 3 steps, and so there was a rhythmic formation of steps, which nobody goes to look at. Okay, everybody goes to look at the decoration, at the carvings of Vishnu and Dashavatar and all of those things, but nobody is looking at what kind of an architectural marvel this piece is. Like these that you see here are supposed to be holding the 2 walls together. Otherwise, the pressure of the soil would push it in. The soil here is loam, so it's sandy. And that's why architecturally they had these. But they also made sure that those can be used as spaces for people to lounge around and hang around, basically, like parks. So these were essentially, apart from them being functional as water collecting spaces, they were also places where kids could run around, and then to me, again, like this whole composition of staircases was crazy. So yeah, so this is where I did the embellishment, because I didn't want to totally eliminate it. Otherwise, it would just take away from the fact that it's Rani Ki Vav, it's that decorated. But we have still reduced it to a level where one can experience most of it. When we cut it into half, most of it, or what your eye sees, is the architecture. To keep some bit of the decoration here. Yeah. So half means we just removed this wall. So it must be like this much. Yeah.
So it's very elongated, this well, unlike the others which are sort of more.
Yeah, because so most of the wells where in states or places where the water table was low were built like that. Except for one, now that you're at it, I'll tell you, there's this step well called Chand Bawdi, which is in Rajasthan, which is a deep well, but is built like a largish, so it has a large footprint, but it's deep. It's not like a linear well. So that's something.
And that's next door.
Yeah. Come, we can go there.
Yeah.
Come, we can see it. Let's not be from this side. Come, please come. So, this is Chand Bawdi, which is like the water table is around 90 feet from the ground. Okay, and they took like a largish footprint, made a large square step well, which has like this whole tessellation of staircases going down from all directions. So in today's practical world, I don't think we would have ever built a step well which has like 100 possibilities of how you can go down and come back up. We would just build one broad staircase so that people can just go down straight and come back up. So people, I mean, they were, I think it's also about, it's possibly, I mean, if it's not too much to say, it's an ode to the genius of people from that era who would give aesthetics or the like the play of shadows and light and all that so much importance, so much value to also public life and all of those things. So this is one of the examples which does that. Also, all the step wells are at the same scale. So when you see the sizes, you realize that how there are some which are so small compared to the others. So those were more functional as step wells. These are all more decorative, had multiple other functions. Like travels could stay back, people could perform a dance in the pavilions here. Maybe the queens or the kings of that era could just come and take a pause if they're going to the temple and all of those things. So it had multiple purposes. Like as the purposes changed, the scale of the well changed.
Is this what you were talking about when you said that the step wells, beyond wells,
had life around it. So what you wanted to
Yeah, here
unearth.
it's the most evident in this and the Rani Ki Vav,
Okay.
where there are spaces where people can s- can wait, can pause, kids can play. Like imagine this whole time when a lady comes, walks say about half a kilometer to a step well to fetch water, and the kid tags along because his mother's friends are also coming to fetch water, and their kids will also be there with them. So then these kids, while the mother is going down fetching water, they're chatting. So there's an entire life around it, which these were built to influence, and they were not just functional buildings. They had a lot more to it. Like, and the kids would play. Maybe she has to come back to fetch water the second time, so the kids would be left behind. They'd play so they get like an hour to play or 2 hours or means infinite amount of time for all you know. And they did not have the fear that we have today. Is that what if he falls off and drowns? So they didn't, because these spaces were built was so attractive that they also would have played around them when they were kids. So the parents would not stop the kids from doing that. So there's so much of history to spaces like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Nitin. Should we move back into the main space just so everyone can
Yeah.
see you? So are there any other questions we have for Nitin today? Or else I'm going to say that we're here, we're not going anywhere, so if you want to ask him any
Yeah,
questions,
we're open to questions.
please do. For the time being, I'd like to thank Nitin so much for his time. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And please stay in touch with us. We'll let you know about future programming both here at 47A and at CNL in Colaba. But until then, thanks so much for being here tonight.
And just one thing that I feel like doing right now is that I'd like to thank Mort and Tara, because without them, I don't think I would have. So the stepwells were on, like we were working on it for 5 years, okay, and it did not have a deadline. And it was their interest in showing the work here is what really pushed us and got us to a stage where we put it all together and put it into this lovely. Also, thank you for having a space like that in this city where galleries are not experimental. Galleries have like a definite kind of work that they want to show. And thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.